Thank you all for joining us this morning. My name is Thomas Larson, and I serve as the Director of Public Information and Government Affairs here at the Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust. We're here today to explore the impact of active infrastructure on our communities in Oklahoma. We'll discuss the opportunities and challenges associated with creating spaces that encourage movement, play, and connection among Oklahomans. We're excited for you to meet our expert panelists, and here to introduce them is TSET's Executive Director, Julie Bisbee.
Thank you, Thomas. And thank you all for taking the time to attend this event this morning. We know everyone is very busy, but this is a very important topic, and so I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today. We have a group of expert panelists to discuss the impact of active infrastructure on communities in Oklahoma. Each panelist brings a unique perspective on how enhanced movement and connectivity can enrich our lives and the strategies we can employ to create spaces that promote healthy and active lifestyles for all. So I'm going to introduce our first panelist. Today we have Vanessa Morrison. She's a member of the University of Oklahoma Institute for Quality Communities and professor of practice in the Division of Planning, Landscape, Architecture, and Design. In addition to her work with the University of Oklahoma, Vanessa is co-founder and CEO of Open Design Collective, where she collaborates with community members on city planning, cultural preservation, and design initiatives that enhance equity in Black neighborhood spaces. Today, she will be highlighting the impact of active infrastructure in underserved communities. Vanessa?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Julie, Thomas, TSET, and team. I'm super excited to be joining today's discussion. In my role at OU-IQC, I've had the great joy and opportunity to work with TSET on multiple initiatives as we bring students out into communities and support built environment related projects that community leaders are leading within their communities each day. So I'm excited to join the discussion and be a part of today's conversation and talk about some of the work that we're doing at the IQC and how it connects to these principles of community placemaking and the social and physical infrastructures of communities. All right, thank you. We can advance to the next slide. So here at the IQC, we are the community engagement arm of the College of Architecture, and we work with communities all across the state of Oklahoma to, again, support their built environment related projects. So the buildings, the streets, the parks, and all the physical spaces in between through mechanisms like placemaking, and really being intentional about coming into communities, not as representatives, but as collaborators and working alongside community members in uplifting and strengthening their physical spaces. And so community placemaking is centric to everything that we do at the IQC. And we describe it as a collaborative process where we work again alongside residents to shape and improve and enhance their public spaces so everyone can thrive in place. This is also really a critical approach for us at the IQC because it really emphasizes this sense of community ownership. And again, not coming in as representatives, as people who are experts who know better, but understanding that community members hold a deep level of expertise and lived experience that can really inform us as urbanists, as people who are working to uplift these physical structures, how we can best do that in a way that supports their priorities, enhances their quality of life, and really connects to the lived experiences that they are seeing every day in their communities. And so it helps us to share power. And there's a process that we usually use to approach these projects and communities. First and foremost, it's really important that we go in understanding to the best of our ability community context. And so we work very closely with students to make sure they understand the importance of not going into a community and putting the labor on residents to teach you and educate you and inform you of what all is important or what all is needed to know about their community. Yes, we want to create space where they can inform that, and we have conversations and we listen to their stories and experiences, but we also need to do our due diligence in understanding what are the spatial patterns, what is the topography, where are some of the assets, where are some of the challenges as it relates to the built environment, and going into these conversations with a level of context. And again, not just laboring residents to do all the education work for us. We also go in and we are very intentional about developing strategies from our understanding of the demographics, the age groups, the different experiences that are happening within the community. How can we design engagement strategies that really meet people where they're at and invite people into the conversation and really make space where we can co-design solutions together? We really want to emphasize that, yes, these are students, us as practitioners, we come in with a skill set that's really important, that really thinks about the technical aspects of the physical environment, but we must work with community members to understand how can that best connect with their context and making sure that the engagement strategies that we're leveraging to understand that information really meets people where they're at. And then last but not least, we definitely want to do what we can to ensure that community members can carry the work on beyond our time on the project. This is really important for our students to understand because we are only there for a set amount of time. Oftentimes we're working in communities where we are not residents, we are not significantly rooted in these areas. And so it's important for us that we are positioning projects where the benefits last longer than our presence in these communities, and community members can continue to mobilize and advance the work onto other levels or other scales of the project, or even activate new ones beyond our time in the community. And so really, again, sharing power, making sure that we're sharing a sense of ownership, and that from the start, from the research, from the engagement to the recommendations that we put together, that we're including community members in every step of the process in this practice of placemaking. Next slide. And so these are some images of our students out in community, and we really enjoy starting these conversations off by exploring the physical spaces that are important to residents in their community. Again, we like students to come in prepared, do the research that they can, but a lot of communities, especially marginalized, smaller towns, communities that are maybe not as large or visible, sometimes that data is very scarce in our data sources that we have at our fingertips. You know, we have the internet, we have the library, we have a lot of resources that have information that we can connect students to, but we are very clear that that is not the full story of the community. And so when we can, and oftentimes we are very fortunate to have the opportunity, we're able to bring students out into the communities that we're working with to meet the elders, meet the business owners, meet the stakeholders, but also talk to residents and explore the physical spaces and assets that are important to them. We love walking around and doing walking tours. The first picture that you see on your screen is us in Taft, Oklahoma. It's one of the existing Black townships, one of 14 that still exists, and what originally was a part of a collective of over 50 Black townships in the state of Oklahoma. We were able to walk around their community, look at the areas that represent and cultivate a sense of history, belonging. And while they have lost many aspects of their physical environment and they've gone through a lot of struggles, there are many assets, tangible and intangible, that are very important to this community. And we would not be able to understand that context if we didn't spend time in conversation, walking around and experiencing the physical aspects that are important to neighbors. The next picture, the middle picture, is us in Luther. We had a really great opportunity to work with the Three family, who has one of the only documented Black rest stop for travelers along Route 66 in the earlier 1900s. It's the only documented rest stop that was safe and that was accessible to Black travelers, that is known across the entire country. And the family is working very hard to revitalize that station and transition it and adapt it into an interpretive museum sort of space so people can understand the family history and the experiences of Black travelers along Route 66 in between multiple sundown towns in that era of time. And so students got to walk around the station, talk to the family, talk to the patriarch and the matriarch of the family, and understand those histories on a deeper level. The right picture is us in a town called Westville, very just amazing town, small town, about population 1,000 near the Arkansas border, that is just really pulling together some transformative resources to enhance the physical spaces in their community. And we got a really great opportunity to work on a downtown park to help increase quality of life, create a space where people can connect to nature and be healthy and be in community, but to also support downtown business owners that were not seeing a lot of traffic come into that area because there were not these physical spaces that brought people together. So we love to go out, walk around, experience the community, touch, see, and feel the spaces that are important to community members, and really approach this work from an assets lens versus only looking at the challenges. And so some key takeaways that we really hold at our hearts here at the IQC are really, again, just this importance and this principle of working alongside community members. And yes, we do have technical skills, and that is the power that we can bring into uplifting these physical spaces, but making sure it's a collaborative process. So what we're designing, planning, shaping, and influencing really connects to the experiences of those who live in these communities, and also that we're doing what we can to safeguard history. A lot of times the urbanist, the practitioner, is thinking about the present and future, but we don't want to do that at the expense of losing history, when many of these communities that we're working in have already lost so much of that. And so how do we plan for the future, think about how residents can flourish in place in their physical spaces in the present and the future, but how do we also turn to the past to understand solutions, and how do we safeguard assets so they can also exist and function in the future, and making sure that the physical infrastructures are strong and resilient and functioning, but also the social aspects of infrastructure, the ability for folks to build relationships, share stories, protect legacies, are also at the forefront of the work that we're doing. So that's a snapshot of how we do placemaking at the IQC. I know it was really quick, but thank you for your time. That's my email down there, vanessa@ou.edu. We actually have a new director that just onboarded last week. Her name is Dr. Amber Wiley. We're super excited to welcome her. So if you have a community or know someone who is working on a project that you think could use our support, we're happy to learn more about that. And you can email me at my information below, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I know I got so excited to hear your presentation that I didn't encourage the audience to go ahead and populate the questions. So whatever platform you're in, please go ahead and submit those questions. And I'll give that a minute. But, you know, what you're talking about is very much in line with some of the things that are important to TSET. Is, you know, we strive to have local solutions for our most pressing public health issues, and we're helping Oklahomans where they live, work, learn, and play to have a higher quality of life is right in line with that. So that is fantastic. And while we're also waiting for questions, I'm going to give the audience a little snapshot of the other panelists, and hopefully we'll get some questions coming in, because we want this to be an interactive conversation. If you're here today, this is important to you. And this is also a place to learn and make those connections. That is really key to how we move our state forward. So just real quick, I will introduce the other panelists. We'll get some questions coming in. Also, we have with us today Julio Badin, who is the Executive Director of the Gathering, or GGP Parks. So he oversees the Gathering Place, Guthrie Green, and Lowdown Club in Tulsa, and provides strategic leadership to further advance the mission of unifying the community. And then also today you will hear from Jason Olson, who is the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Norman Recreation Department. He's been there over 2 decades, and in his role as director, he oversees 60 full-time employees and 200 seasonal employees, and he's going to talk about the impact of Parks and Rec on citizens and communities. So, you know, Vanessa, you talked a lot about our historically Black towns. Can you talk about some of the impact that you see when you go into these communities and really listen about what is important to their needs, and how you try to bridge that gap?
Yes. And so in my role here at the IQC, we've had the opportunity to work with the towns of Tallahassee and Taft, 2 of, again, the existing Black townships. And it's just really amazing to see how these small communities, population in the hundreds, a lot of times being led by elders and people who are just really passionate about the work that they're doing. They're working with little to oftentimes zero resources to revitalize their communities, and just doing what they can to protect that history and bring visibility to it. And so it's just really inspiring to see how committed these community leaders are, and how dedicated, no matter what the challenges they face, in making sure that they're making incremental progress in uplifting and rebuilding their towns. And TSET has been, again, such a great partner in multiple projects, because a lot of times these communities don't have the financial means to even get just a small project off the ground. And you all being able to come in and partner with us and provide grants for signage, for trails, for walkability initiatives really helps give communities the agility to continue to build progress incrementally in their towns. And so Tallahassee, in what our work typically culminates into, is a booklet. And so we detail our research, our engagement findings, and then our students design usually concepts and renderings and designs for improvements to physical spaces. And a lot of times those towns are able to take that information and go get grant funding to implement their projects. Usually they have to go speak with a professional as a next step, because our students are working on the conceptual level. They're not licensed, they're not professionals yet. But it really helps bring in the information to advance that project to the next level. And Tallahassee, since we've been working with them, and they've been working with so many different partners, not just us, but they've been able to revitalize their recreational center and make it a multi-purpose space. So now they have a physical space where they can host sports, family reunions, gatherings, things of that nature, which is catalyzing a series of other improvements that are coming into their town. TAPT has been able to, in partnership with TSET, build a trail. Walkability is very challenging. There's a highway that runs right through their community. There have been fatalities and serious injuries related to pedestrians not having safe places to walk. And so building a trail has catalyzed them building a park in partnership with TSET. And so it doesn't happen overnight, right? The revitalization, the development of a community does not happen overnight. It starts with incremental projects like the trail, like the sidewalk, like the park. And seeing these communities work so hard to champion those projects and seeing all the progress they're making is just such an amazing experience for us. And it's teaching us a fuller story about the leaders who are working hard to make Oklahoma a better place, to make quality of life stronger for residents across our communities. So there's so many takeaways I could share, but definitely seeing how hard they're working and how they're making progress. And it may not be overnight, but they're making it happen. And partnerships like with TSET is really making that possible.
Yeah, thank you. What kind of feedback do you get from residents? You come in, you talk to them about what they want, what they need. What do they tell you?
They're just excited. You know, a lot of these communities don't have a lot of visibility. There's not always a platform for them to share their stories. And so when visitors come in, they usually are just so happy to share their story and their legacies with people who are there and want to hear and learn more. I know a lot of the communities that we work within, they're wanting to look at how do we do economic development? How do we bring businesses into our community so people can really live here full time, be employed, have jobs, not have to travel 30 minutes to the next biggest city and spend money in that city when they could be spending money in their towns. Pedestrian friendly infrastructure is a really big priority to a lot of these communities as well, because of the injuries and fatalities that a lot of cities are seeing as it relates to, again, pedestrians not having safe spaces to navigate around their towns. And so there's a lot of need from the physical aspect, economic, and social. And a lot of communities are just working to understand from the resident perspective, how do we start prioritizing and planning for these needs so we can execute on them? So yeah, and then also, how do you protect those historic assets? It's really important. A lot of these communities, whether through a fire, a natural disaster, or not having the means to maintain a building or physically be able to afford the maintenance on a building, a lot of communities are wrapping around how do we save what's left? And so they're working on a lot of different initiatives, and it's just really inspiring to see it.
And it creates a sense of pride as well, yes. Or it's like a visual representation of that.
Right.
What are some of the engagement strategies that you found to be most effective in overcoming some of the challenges that the communities you serve may have?
Yeah. Typically, we like to use a methodology called oral history collection because it's a very accessible tool that is really just an invitation for a resident and participant to share their lived experience and walk us through what a day in their life is like. You know, we love to map, we love to diagram, we love to do different tactical activities, but everyone usually feels comfortable sharing about their story. It doesn't take a level of practice, expertise. It's just like I'm showing up as I am, and we are working to meet residents where they're at. And so usually that's a really popular methodology that we use in communities, especially when we're working with our elders in community. They're like, we don't want to collage and tape things on the wall. We just want to tell you something. And so it's, and then you learn so much too. Like you're not just getting the physical aspect of their need, but you're hearing a broader experience that we can work to translate into design. And so we know that, you know, communal spaces coming together, family reunions are important. We might be hearing about the family reunion, but as an urbanist, as a spatial thinker, we can translate that priority, that cultural practice into the physical space and make sure the physical space can function in a way to facilitate those activities and those gatherings. And so it's always fun to hear the larger story, not just the, hey, tell us about this specific element of your town, but tell us your story so we can be creative in our approaches and making sure that translates into the design and the functionality of the space that we're helping you co-create.
Absolutely. And I always think about these as opportunities to connect. And we hear so much about connectivity and knowing your neighbors or your community members as being not only good for your physical, but also your mental health.
Absolutely.
And can you talk through, you know, if there are any examples like that where, you know, that really led the initiative in addition to making improvements for safety? Do you have any examples?
Yeah, several. I can go back to Westville. So we were working with them on a pocket park in their downtown, and like many rural communities across the state and nationally, they are experiencing a lot of adversity from economic, mental health in general, you know, all the adversities you can think of. They are grappling with a lot of that. And the community leadership was like, we need spaces where people can go and connect to nature, be able to heal, be able to be in a community where they can be safe. There's a lot of youth in this community that don't really have things to do. And we know the trouble that youth can get into when they're idle and don't have spaces that they can connect to or safe activities they can plug into. And so the community was like, you know, we really need to think about how we can create a physical space where people can come together, build those relationships, heal, connect to nature, and really strengthen the social infrastructure of this community. And also support those downtown businesses, because walkability is a challenge. There's not really a lot of ease in getting to downtown. And then when you get there, you're usually in and out, right? Like you go to your business, get your food, drop your mail off, do what you got to do, and then you're gone. So how can we create a space that invites people to stay for a little bit and then maybe explore different businesses, spend time getting to know the entrepreneurs and be in community together? And so the students led an engagement process with dozens of community members. Westville, they're small, but they're mighty, and they have a very active resident base. And so we spent a lot of time hearing the stories, engaging with them, understanding the priorities of what they would want to see manifested in a physical park, like a downtown pocket park. And the students put together some really impressive designs. And I'm referencing these projects that also can be looked up on our website, just iqc.ou.edu. We have a project library where you can kind of peruse around and see the work that students produce. And Westville was able to take those design recommendations, work with the firm, Kimley Horn. I know many of us are familiar with them. And they actually built the park. They got a grant and they were able to demonstrate to a funder, hey, we did a community engagement process. We've done our research. We have buy-in. We have partners. We have design concepts. And they got, I know, well over $1 million at this point from multiple different grants to break ground and build that park. And so, again, they have been working years before IQC came into the community, but it's really amazing to see how an engagement process and conceptualizing visuals and designs and bringing community together around how they can create those spaces where people can be healthy and connect and be in community together can really come true with collaboration and those important partnerships. And so.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You're helping them paint a vision.
Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would add? I'm going to just check our questions. I want to be sure that we're hearing from our audience.
No, I'm sad I have to leave. We have a meeting. We're actually going on a site visit. We're going to Taft, Sallisaw, and Westville on a 3-day site visit. So I got to get the students ready. I'm sad to miss Julio, Thomas, and Jason's contributions, but I'm excited to catch the recording. And yeah, just thank you for having me. And if anybody wants to reach out, they can email me directly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Vanessa, and what you bring to the state. Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too. See you later. All right. Well, next up, we have Julio Barin. Again, he's the director of GGP Parks, Gathering Place, Guthrie Green, that's a mouthful, and the Lowdown Club. So I will turn it over to Julio to give a brief presentation. And again, please keep those questions, comments coming. We want to hear from you, but now we'll hear from Julio.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Julie. I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit about Gathering Place. So just to put a little context, I have been at Gathering Place for almost 3.5 years. The park has been around. We'll talk about that for a second. I come from a couple of different industries, including my job before this was over at Dallas-Fort Worth at the International Airport over there as the head of customer experience. And then prior to that, I served 18 years over at Disney doing theme park operations, which I think has some relevance to the conversation here. So the perspective I'll provide today is a very operational one with some obviously strategic background on that. But I've come to understand the importance of city parks in a couple really, what I would say, ways that really illustrate what a community can be. So if we move on to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about that. And the first thing to talk about is Tulsa. You know, the city of Tulsa is really a dynamic city and has a rich history, an interesting history, but at the same time is motivated by what I call can-do people who really figure out how to make things happen as a community. And there's a lot of great engagement on that. And so Gathering Places is basically part of that. You know, it was a dream realized by George Kaiser, who is a notable business leader here, and the Family Foundation, but also the community coming together around this idea and concept to provide this 67-acre park that really is world class. And, you know, as part of that, it really is about how do we engage our community in a way that's engaging, that it's educational, and it's exciting, you know, and we want to do that in a way that there is no barrier for the guest, you know, for our community members who come here. So everything we have here from a programming perspective is free to the public. And that's a big deal because it does require it requires sponsorships and donors and an investment and a commitment by the executive leadership and the community to ensure that we're able to provide that going forward. And as you can see, this community was able to raise $465 million, which is still the largest private gift to a community park in our history here in the United States. And that really does, again, that can-do attitude. In our 6 years of operations, we have become one of Oklahoma's largest attractions, especially as you talk about outside space. And it is really a compelling amenity. A lot of what we do here is really is provide, you know, sort of a step one when a new company is thinking about relocating or maybe adding services here to the city of Tulsa. You know, a lot of community members, civic leaders and stuff this is step one, is to come to this beautiful green space and see what this community is all about, the spirit of this place. And then you go throughout the rest of the city and you see all these wonderful, compelling spaces, amenities. So it's not just Gathering Place, it's also the River Park system, which is handled, and you see an amazing investment in Turkey Mountain. And then you see all our smaller city parks throughout the city. And one of the things that's very important for me, for people to understand, is that we believe in our smaller parks, the neighborhood parks. Those, and we will actually extend our ability to support them from providing free services or whatever in those areas, because those are so important to the neighborhood itself. And so that's really important for us. And we have great relationships with our city park team and our River Parks team. And so, I want to spend a little time on the programming part. We have a program, and it's made possible because of companies like PSO, which is our local energy company. And over this past year, we had over 87,000 visitors who actually were able to participate in educational programs that had cultural enrichment. It had actual learning about horticulture, learning about the different things that you can see in our park, but also a reflection of all the wonderful opportunities and culture diversity that we have in the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma. So, and you all know what that means, because it is way more diverse than people understand when they think of Oklahoma from the outside. In addition to that, we had almost 16,000 students and teachers that come here, and they actually teach their kids here, or we help engage with it. So we provide training for the teachers to be able to lead their own class field trips, but we also provide that as a service. And again, it's free to the schools. We'll even pay for the transportation for them to get here, so that the barrier is zero. And this really helps for some of our schools in East Tulsa and Northern Tulsa, where that might be a bit of a challenge to get here. And then, like I said earlier, we do hundreds of park tours for potential governments. The government, we have a great relationship with our city leaders and our civic leaders and our local partners since opening. And it really has been a great starting point for just why Tulsa is such a great, compelling place to live, and why the state of Oklahoma is so compelling as well. All right, so moving on, talking a little bit more about why parks in general are so important. So we have a great relationship with the City Parks group, and they've done some work, and you can go onto their website to see some of the detail and information. But city parks and parks in general and green space in general are just so vital to the success of a community. In addition to the fact that they do create jobs, I have 150 employees, but think about all the events that we provide. That provides musicians, and it provides entertainers, and it provides smaller businesses the opportunity to share what they have with the rest of the community in a really wonderful setting. We also have, all those things that we do provide economic growth for the city itself. We're in the midst of redoing the study to see where that is, but I think that the numbers that we originally thought were way under what we're actually seeing as to the economic value that Gathering Place and Turkey Mountain and these other wonderful free facilities that talk about greens, or that provide green space and bikes and trails and all these different things really provide to community. So I'm not going to go into all the detail there, but you can see some of the different things on that slide. I also want to talk about health. Our community, we're lucky here. The city of Tulsa, we have a lot of bikers. We have 26 miles of trails, bike trails, and a lot of pedestrians. And there is a healthy feeling here. And now with the opening of Zinc Lake on the Arkansas River, we're bringing that back, and that's another thing that has happened, and it's right alongside Gathering Place, so we're able to leverage that. But there's no doubt that we have the opportunity to be better from a community perspective from health, and so our playground, we have a 5-acre, what I would call free Disney, right? A level of playground that is not just about climate. It's about imagination. It's about adventure. It's about really kids working together to bring this attraction to life. And so there's just all these opportunities. And so it touches the healthy, the athletic nature, but also the creative and the inspirational and the community. All those work together to really bring together a feeling of of all of us, regardless of who we are, can be safe and enjoying who we are as a community. So I really, and that's been so foundational to what we do here. We're relatively accessible. There are some challenges that we continue to work on to try to increase that accessibility. But also we have trails, people, and then using the River Park System trail, which is right alongside, you can get on a bike, you can get on a scooter, and or you can use the skate park or the basketball courts, and we even have pickleball as a test. And so all those different things that really bring all ages together in a way that's compelling from a healthy perspective outdoors in that beautiful green space. One quick little story we had, we actually had somebody send a letter to us. They were down. It was a really hard time for them in their life, and they sat in one of our gardens and healed right there. And so the power of green space, the power of that in your community and what that can do for inspiration moving forward, even in difficult times, is really powerful. And so, just to sum it up, Gathering Place really is a culmination of wonderful residents coming together with that attitude. It's all about generosity, and it's all about can-do. We spend a lot of, and we're very focused on keeping this park well maintained, and so that it's a reflection of the standards here in Tulsa, not just here, but throughout Tulsa. And then, of course, we do provide everything here that we provide from an educational, cultural, programming perspective. Is family friendly, and it's free.
Yeah, free is huge, right? I know that when I have been to the Gathering Place with my kiddos, one, they don't have their phones out, which is huge. They're big kids now, but they're running and acting like small kids on the spider web. Kind of talk about how that was foundational in the planning. I mean, you can build beautiful places. Disney is probably a good example. It's a great place to be, but I just can't go there every day. I could go to the Gathering Place every day. Can you kind of talk about how that was an important value when they were planning out the park?
Absolutely. It was a core value. They selected the architect based on that. So Michael Van Valkenburg and Associates, who are obviously award-winning architects, everything that they did was about what is the experience for all different types of people who want to use that park. And so the accessibility in this park, I worked at Disneyland for 18 years, and that was built in 1955, so it wasn't the most accessible park, and here everything is accessible. We have we have 7 towers and you can get a wheelchair all the way up to the entry to that tower. And so, I mean, that just the level of detail, the level of focus on making sure that we're serving every single person that we possibly can was core to that. And it's with a sense of community and creativity. So, it's not just a playground. It's a playground where people can transform the way, they can just be creative and imaginative. One of my favorite parts of the playground, we call it Volcanoville, and it's where basically 6-month-old children to 18-month-old children can explore, and the parents can sit there and feel at ease because it's enclosed, and they can talk to each other while their kids can grow, and we've seen kids take their first steps there. Mm-hmm. You go to the south part of the park, and you can play basketball. And they're not just the courts are in impeccable condition, right? There's a skate park, and what I love about the skate park is we have a community there that supports each other, whether you're just starting out or you're advanced, and you see that respect across the community members at that age group, which is really promising.
Yeah, you mentioned all of those different areas. It's like you are building gathering places across the lifespan, and it sounds like that's what you're finding.
For sure, exactly.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about how when Gathering Place was starting, how they touched base with the community to say what's important to you, or how do we meet what you need?
Yeah, Gathering Place sits on a pretty nice piece of property, right? It's along the Arkansas River. It's next to one of the more affluent areas of the city, which was a little bit controversial at first. And so the land was procured over time. And part of the challenge originally was the residents, the local residents right next to the community were a little bit concerned on what does this mean for us and how is this going to impact us. But you know, what was great about the approach is that the community was taken through each step from the beginning, and prior to actually even going forward with it, they met with the local, with the city member, or excuse me, with the neighborhoods right around this park, met with them, had conversations with them, listened to their concerns, and really tried to address those concerns. As an example, there is an entry point that's specifically designed for the neighborhood, so they can go in that way, and that was part of the conversation. And the way it was designed was adjustments were made to ensure that the neighbors were feedback was taken into consideration. On a bigger city scale, we actually had meetings. We had meetings with community members. We unveiled what it was going to look like and the detail. They had direct conversations with the architects. And so that was a really big and important part, you know. And as we think about what's next, we're taking that. It was such a successful approach the first time. We're looking at very similar approaches as we go forward, because we do have we have some space left to develop.
Very good. Very good. Well, any parting thoughts before we move on to Mr. Olson? I've learned a lot today, and I know I've been to the Gathering Place a few times, but I feel like you've really given us an inside peek.
Excellent. What I'll say is that, you know, for me, you know, Gathering Place is an example of a park, and the more that we can see this type of park and the more that parks support each other, to me, it's just a win-win solution. So I'm a huge fan of all parks, small, big, you know, state level parks. And I think that communities thrive because they have a great system in place of green space, whether it's a walkway or it's an actual functional park. So huge fan.
Very good. What a wonderful transition to our next panelist. Thank you. Jason Olson, he is the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Norman, and he's going to talk with us today about the impact of parks and recs on citizens and communities.
Yes, thank you, Julie. And I agree with everything Julio was saying. And we have great contacts through all of our park systems here in Oklahoma, and his partners that he works with through Tulsa River Authority are great friends of ours, and we use each other's resources, and we talk to each other about how to make our communities better and our park system better. And parks are essential when you start talking about active infrastructure. The importance to communities of parks is very hard to explain. It's one of those things that you don't necessarily always hear at the forefront of a council meeting or you know, on the front page of the newspaper. But I think that as especially in the past 4 or 5 years, as we went through things and we saw different times and ways for people to stay healthy and get their exercise, and for green spaces to be more efficient and important to our communities. The importance of these parks have come to the forefront, especially during COVID, when people had to find a way to get out and get out of the house, take a walk, ride their bike, exercise. We saw more people in parks than we've ever seen before, and that brought us to the forefront of these conversations. And the reason why you bring all this other stuff up along with your green spaces, your trails, your rec centers, your connections, you do want an active community. You do want a healthy community. It's important for cities to have these parks, these green spaces, not only to improve the quality of life of our residents, but we also want to attract people to move to our towns when they come to work in Oklahoma City. When they don't want to live in the city, a lot of times they look at the suburbs surrounding, and they make their decisions on what different kind of amenities or different kind of parks that they will have access to. And we want to make sure that especially in our park system here in Norman, which is growing substantially. We have currently 68 parks. We'll be over 70 parks by the end of 2025. A growing park system means we have a growing city, and it is also good that we have a city that's ready to invest in ourselves. But it is also essential that we have these spaces, because not everybody can afford to have a gym membership, or necessarily do they have time to get out to the gym. A lot of times it's easier to walk over to your neighborhood park, which was within a few blocks of your house, and take a walk, get time with your family, taking them to a playground set, and getting those kids on doing something besides sitting on a phone or playing a PlayStation, and getting different ways to exercise and different ways to use your connectivity. And also is a great time to go spend time with family and friends when you make those easy connections out to a neighborhood park. The neighborhood parks are the heartbeat of every park system. It's really cool to have a big park like the Gathering Place, which I've been to several times with my kids, and it's an awesome alternative. There's nothing that beats the Gathering Place when you're talking about a large park and beautify, beauty and the amenities. But it's also important just to be able to walk to a park and get a quarter-mile walk-in, or sit there and push your kids on a swing set, and having that access close to your house. And that makes for a more healthy community. When we talk about everything that we have around our park system, it's also important for us as a city to build things that are for everybody. We want our parks or recreation centers to be, not discriminating against what religion you are, what color you are, how much money you make. That should not matter when you go to a green space or a rec center. There should be something for a person to do. And I forgot to mention age. We also want to make sure there's a variety for every single age group, from a toddler, a baby, all the way up to our seniors, which have put a lot more into our communities than we'll ever know. So we need to make sure we take care of everybody that is in our park system. And sometimes, the older you get, the more you forget about the adults and people there. But as we send out surveys, they're actually really high ranking on our surveys. I think that we're now looking at a little bit different makeup in our community than what we've seen in the past generation. When I first became a parent, there was a lot of importance into pushing our kids and making sure our kids have options, which is still very important to our population here in Norman. But also too, there's adults asking for more programming for them, and that has to check a box for seniors too, because they are adults. We have to make sure that we have these programs and places for everybody. If you go back to that picture real quick, to the Young Family Athletic Center, when you start talking about things that we've done recently in Norman, we've had a $150 million quality of life initiative that was passed in 2015, that 0.5% sales tax that we invested in ourselves. And when you start talking about park systems and things that go along with park systems, we had a kind of an aging park system here in Norman about a decade ago. And we had a group of parents and seniors that wanted a place to go that was better than what they had. We had a senior center. It was the old library in Norman that was turned into a senior center. It was a 70-year-old building that had 3 different floors to it. And imagine if you're a senior trying to get around that building. It's not the greatest or easiest. When you look at the Young Family Athletic Center, we had 4 basketball courts that were these kids were playing in a basketball gym that was a World War II hangar, and turned into a basketball gym. We had aging infrastructure. We had to come out and ask the public, which the public was demanding for us to invest in ourselves. And we got things like the Young Family Athletic Center. And we were very lucky in Norman. It's not every time that you're able to have great timing, perfect timing that lines up with a NBA superstar that is making several $1 million a year, and his family grew up in Norman and is dedicated to that town. And then at the same time you have a $150 million quality of life initiative that matches up. We were lucky enough to have both of those at the same time. And we were able to join with Trey Young and his family to help build the Young Family Athletic Center, which has 8 basketball courts, 2 swimming pools. We Norman Regional also invested inside of that to put a sports performance area right in the middle of that. And when you start talking about investing in ourselves, not only do we now have a absolutely beautiful state-of-the-art center for swimming, basketball, volleyball, any other sport that you can think of, but we also have this sports tourism attraction that it's gone far beyond any of what we thought was possible. We're having tournaments where we had a Adidas Live tournament last year, which was it's basically a shoe sponsor tournament where we had teams from all 50 states that came here. Over 200 NCAA basketball coaches came to Norman to watch these kids play, all because of how we invested in ourselves and how we improved our infrastructure in Norman. And I'll talk about a few more of those Norman Forward projects, because it wasn't just about the YFAC. When we talk about our senior population, which they do not like to be called seniors, just take a quick note for yourself. They are adults, so we want to treat them like adults, and they wanted a nice place where they could go and work out and socialize. And when you talk about the aging population in any community, health is, your physical health is just a small portion of what they need. I have my father-in-law, which his wife passed away in the past 5 or 6 years, did not have a whole lot of friends inside this community, but because his best friend was his wife. And when she passed away, he didn't have a whole lot of people to talk to. We got him to go to the Adult Wellness and Education Center, and now he has a ton of friends. And I will tell you, his spirit and his mental health has completely changed. There's now family activities where he'll tell us, I can't make it. I'm sorry. I got to go hang out and go to this drum class and hang out with my friends at the Adult Wellness Center. And we're just like, well, that's cool. So there's so many more important things than just physical activity. And the Adult Wellness checks that box. And when you start talking about making programs for people of all abilities, this is our playground over at Ruby Grant Park. And this is a full, highly accessible, I won't say fully accessible, highly accessible playground. You see the poured surface and everything's flat. We have low-level games, and these are people for our games for kids that are in wheelchairs or have different abilities than what you think of your average child. We just want to make sure that we do have these problems or these solutions for what we didn't know was a problem 10 or 15 years ago. And once again, you want to offer recreational activities for everybody, no matter their ability or age. Let's see what else we got next after there. Active infrastructure. And this final thoughts for us, I mean, we're just trying to continue the momentum we got with Norman Forward. We're looking to other things. There's also, we invested very well inside of our parks in sports and in our seniors, but there also is an arts community. And when I start leaning back on different types of recreation, you don't have to necessarily go to a park or to a rec center to recreate. There's theater, there's art classes. I mean, your mind is moving and being active, and that's what's important to a park system. And how to get involved in your communities is, I think that when you start talking about getting involved, every parks department wants people involved. That's what we live for. We want you to get out to your park. It's as easy as to go out there and walk a trail, be on a playground, give us a little heads up, because you're in that park more than we are. Give us a heads up if the trash is full or you see something that shouldn't be there. We want beautiful parks just as much as everybody else does. Also, there's ways to volunteer to help clean up a park, or volunteer to be on a committee to help us build the next park, because we love that public input, because you know more than what we do of what is needed in your neighborhood or in your community park. So feedback is very important to every single park system. I think that I kind of rambled probably long enough. I don't know if you have any questions or not.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think you're highlighting a lot of things that we're seeing communities wrestle with. And as we talk about how to be healthy, we also have to think about what are the barriers to being healthy or getting outside or being active. And they are different across different age groups. And so I think you've done a great job of highlighting that. How can policymakers or community leaders support and ensure the sustainability of these infrastructure projects? You both oversee some pretty large, important parks, but on the back end of that, there's the day-to-day sustainability.
And that's a great question. As you talk about, I think part of the struggle is to building these parks or rec centers or things like that. I think once you get them built, a very big forgotten thing is like, how do we maintain this? How do you keep these fresh? How do you not let them get stale? Because I mean, is the possibility you have a amenity in there that gets outdated within 10 years. You want to start talking and make sure that you're setting aside money for maintenance. You also want to have a clear vision for the future, how to keep that park relevant or your rec center relevant, because trends change, people change. And how do you stay in contact with your authority that makes those decisions? I think that's a lot on the park director. That's it's your job to communicate with them, but a lot of that is also being willing to listen, because you know what I can say all I want to and talk to our city council as much as until my face turns blue, but if you got a group that wants pickleball, it's more effective for them to contact your policymakers directly and tell them how bad you want pickleball.
Yeah, that constituent input is always very important. And Julio, did you have something that you wanted to add to that?
I would say that the number one issue with it isn't funding the park; it's keeping the park running. I've read several studies on this, and you'll see cities, you'll see communities put the money up for a park, or they'll allocate money to that, and then it's not maintained. There's no future vision, and then that's just a wasted asset, and then it just costs ridiculous amounts to try to figure that out. So you need to have strategic planning, and you need to think this through, and we need to, as a community, and our communities really need to be understanding the long-term value of maintaining and really, and you can expound this out to not just city parks, but yeah, I think that's critical, and it's a constant challenge, because we tend to take this like project approach.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know for TSET, I mean, our goals are always to help improve quality of life and health, and we're focusing on reducing preventable death. Physical activity, being outside, having that active infrastructure helps support that. And so those are the types of things too that we're very interested in helping to move that conversation along. I have some comments here from the audience, so I'm going to open this up to either one of you. Our friend Emily watching says, is there a special focus towards soft surface trails and strategies to improve access and to use access to and use of these types of nature trails? With Bike Club Tulsa, we aim to improve access to green space, and we want to connect them, community members, to learn more of their perception of trails and better what barriers to access they have. So, is there a special focus on the soft surface trails or strategies to improve access?
Well, I would say that, there's been a lot of investment here on the trails. Most recent would be Turkey Mountain and the different types of surfaces and trails that they use. And then it's sort of a mixture of, obviously we need to maintain these, and we need to be able to maintain them in a way so that makes some of the decision making, but also different levels of expertise in trying to provide what, in the case of Turkey Mountain, is what specifically are we trying to accomplish with the bike trails, and so the different levels and stuff like that. And So I don't know if it's as well designed out. For us, ours is more internally to gathering places, more about walking. And then, of course, we have green space throughout that people can use as well. And we do some of our health activities and our physical activities on those. And we do choose, appropriate for the different types of conditions that we're going. Our surfaces in the playground are very much designed to mitigate for falls. They're not designed to necessarily, it's not going to, you might still hurt an arm or something like that, but any kind of, because so adventure and that kind of stuff is still important to us, but we definitely want to, any kind of catastrophic or severe injury we do want to minimize. So we do take that into consideration.
Of course, yeah.
And I feel like Oklahoma, especially Oklahoma City area, is way behind Tulsa on trails. And then Arkansas really puts us both to shame. But we're changing our focus, and all we're hearing now, especially we just did our park system master plan, and done a few community surveys, and trails are popping to the top of every single thing that we're doing, and trying to prioritize that and trying to get those built. It's not easy, and like I said, we're way behind. It's Arkansas and Oklahoma City areas behind Tulsa. So, we need the input, and we need to understand what all these surfaces are and what's the long-term effects. I know I've been. You go down to the Katy Trail, and some of that trail is like a track surface, and it's great to walk on, and your knees feel awesome afterwards. And but the cost of it, is a real. What is the reality of building that and being able to maintain that? And this is what we're talking about. In thought, it's great to have those type of surfaces, but as bad as this sounds, a lot of times we take especially in city services, we take the attitude like what would work in a prison, and that's a bad attitude to take, because a lot of times we have to figure out what is vandal proof, and what is cost effective, and what is the best way to build it the first time without. Because we know we're not going to have a whole lot of maintenance money to follow that up to keep it in shape. So, we're trying to figure it out, and I hope we catch up with trails with Tulsa, and the state as a whole catches up with the Razorback Trail. That's awesome.
I do have to give a quick shout out to Bike Club Tulsa. They're great partners, and they do great stuff for the community from a health and active activity perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you both have, kind of touched on in your comments is that it takes a lot of input from the various groups, and you don't know there's a need if it's not being expressed to you. And I know, things that we've been involved with just with my family, there's a volunteer group that's doing mountain bike trail revitalization. And if those groups are not talking to city leaders or decision makers, it's hard to know what the needs are. So if either one of you can kind of talk about, the role of those community groups in helping to inform and improve or keep our parks in a great shape.
Stakeholders are important when you start talking about Norman Ford and these community groups. That's the whole reason some of these initiatives even get started. I will tell you, it's jealousy of other communities. See what other communities have done, and these stakeholders go to those communities, and they come back to us and like, why can't we do this? How do we do this? And I can't express the importance of them, and especially as these projects get approved, and we're not experts on all this stuff. We need these stakeholder groups and these groups to give us input on how to build these and what they want. Without their input and them staying connected, or even going out there and fighting for these projects, we don't want to build something that gets criticized or is not unused, because that's a waste of public funding. So yeah, stay active. I actively promote you go to other communities, you take pictures, you come back and share them with us, share them with community leaders. If this is something that is possible and could be done. I mean, and also help us out with bringing people to our communities, and go do it and stay in communication as much as possible.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is the ongoing nature of that engagement. For us, we got a lot of information and feedback on the building of the skate park, but we've gone back and, the rules of the skate park, how we interact when we have challenges with it. What is the right thing? What's the right mix? Part of that engagement has led to self-policing. Why do we have to be the police? Why can't the community itself help each other? And so I think that's been very effective, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. And it also is a great opportunity to create events and programming. So I think all those things work together to really drive the value of a park and what it provides to our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, that culture within the culture of how do you support the goals of this park and keep checking in is so important. What would you recommend to stakeholders who want to provide feedback? How should they do that? Or what's the way to go about doing that?
For us, I think it's as easy as setting up an appointment, walking in, go to a park board meeting, go to a city council meeting. In this world that we live in, there's so many there's so many modes of communication, tagging us on Facebook, sending emails, phone calls, visiting. All of those stuff are important. And I think if you really see something that you want in the park system, or something that needs to be adjusted or repaired or maintained better, I think those are all great options. And Norman residents are not afraid to communicate, and they'll use all those communications. And I don't think people should be looking at it like, hey, you're talking negatively on the park system or the city. We need that feedback. You are our eyes. Everybody that goes out to a park, you are our eyes in a way for us to make our park system better. So yeah, find those ways to communicate. And also, simple as going up to the parks department, introducing yourself, and tell employees your passions. I mean, that's if you love bike riding, go in there and communicate it. If you like pickleball, there's nothing wrong with coming up and talking to us. If your kid wants bike trails or horse trails, we've had talks about horse trails lately. You got to communicate, and you got to start proving to us that there's a need for that to eventually happen.
Yeah, we're privately operated, so we're just a little bit different in the sense that, we leverage social media. We do monitor our social media. And so if we see something there, we will respond or ask for more information, or ask them to contact us directly. We also, at gatheringplace.org, there is an intake form there that people can provide, and we do pay attention to all of that. We also have what we call the Gather Tulsa Collaborative, which is a group of community members that we work with directly to help us, and they go out into the community and solicit information, and they have their eyes and their ears open and provide us with really critical and constructive feedback that helps us understand what the community wants. And then my team actually reaches out to the community all the time, especially from a programming perspective. We put together Global Gatherings, which was a phenomenal program, and it's the community that fuels it. They fuel the cultural activities and the talent, and so we have a great relationship with I feel with our community, even when they're frustrated, which sometimes can happen because of parking and things like that can be challenging. And then the last thing I would say is we have a great relationship with River Parks Authority and our city parks, and when they hear information, they share it with us, and we also share it with them. So we're very integrated that way. So
very good, very good. Well, I know we're almost to time. I want to give our panelists an opportunity for any parting thoughts. Sum it up briefly. Jason, you want to go first?
Great time today. I love sitting here and start networking and talking about our systems, and also hearing from great people like Julio, and I know that up in Tulsa, nothing but great things that happen around there. But this is how we improve ourselves and how we get better at our jobs, how we get better for our community. So thank you for this chance and forum to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would first and foremost thank TSET for allowing me the opportunity to come on. I think this is great. Keep doing this kind of work. I think it's important to get this information out and to have the dialogue and have people feel comfortable to discuss this. So I think that's really important. The other thing is, 3.5 years in Oklahoma, not really knowing what to think of Oklahoma prior to my arrival here, and then of course the city of Tulsa. I've just been thoroughly impressed and excited about how great our communities are in this wonderful state. And, Tulsa is a wonderful city, and I've had the opportunity to go to Oklahoma City and Norman several times, and it just feels like the whole state is rocking. And so I really appreciate that. And I think we need to support not just our local cities, but our state, which is, I think, one of the best states in the union. So there you go.
Very nice. Very well said. Well, panelists, thank you again for all of your insight and your time. We appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge on ways we can work together to encourage our communities, our state, to get outside, get active, and really enjoy themselves. We'd also like to thank those of you that tuned in today on the various platforms. I've seen these comments rolling in. Thank you all. And we urge you to continue these conversations with your state and community leaders about ways that we can work together to promote active, healthy lifestyles. For those of you watching, if you would like more information on TSET, please visit our website at oklahoma.gov/TSET. And as always, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn for more information and opportunities when funding is available. Those are among the first places to know. So please be sure to give us a follow. And to learn more about the work of our expert panelists, please visit the links pinned in the chat below. We look forward to continuing to work with all of you in the future. Thank you all.